Now our next speaker is Robert Hurtado. Bob is also is a lecturer here in the International Studies here at the Korbel School, focusing on the undergraduate International Studies program. He has a special knowledge of African political economy with an emphasis on Malawi. He comes to us after having taught for us for many years in Florida. So, Bob.
Thank you. First of all, it's really a privilege to be here for me because in what I teach, I don't often get to comment on American politics and issues that are very important. And so, although I do slip it into my class lectures once in a while, what I want to do for my little presentation here is to take it a little bit further. I have not occupied, and maybe I should, but I'm losing weight, and I'm not sure. Maybe I should be gaining weight so I can take more space. But, I followed the Occupy Wall Street and Occupy activists, and I follow it. And to tell you, I can't speak for what their message may be. They've done that eloquently. I think what they have also done is that they've touched us in a very deep way. Their message, I think, resonates in hearts and souls more than a message I've heard in our political discourse for a very, very long time. In fact, I'd have to go back like 40 some odd years to tell you when I've been so stirred and so moved by young people, by people in the middle class, by workers, who are all coming together to wake us up and to change the conversation. And what I want to do is I want to talk about this and offer what I think is a solution, one that I'll tell you seems to be a reach, but who am I to say that we can't reach when people are doing so much and so good? Our reach should, as the poet said, exceed our grasp. Last week, we got kind of hit with I got hit with two questions, which I think will help us, guide us along. They're just two facts, but they're just something that, will lead me to what I think we should do. And the first one was, we got a report from the AP that said we've dumped about 6% more carbon into the atmosphere in 2010 than we did in 2009. Okay, something to the equivalent of 564 more tons of carbon. And the second one was the CBO report on the growing inequality in our society. And I thought to myself, what is this? And this is a rhetorical question, I grant you. But what is it about this system of ours that we can't seem to address what seems to be the most pressing issues in front of us, especially to those younger people? The gathering storm clouds, are getting closer and closer, and yet it seems that those who are in power and are supposed to be the ones addressing these issues are, basically completely detached and not reacting. And I thought to myself, we're back to the Gilded Age. We've gone back to the Gilded Age. It's marked by, I put twin curses, but I think there's three curses here, and it's marked by, the curse of they're out of touch, okay, they're blind, and they're deaf. And so I thought, we've finally got a movement. Our souls, like I said, we're being touched by this, and maybe where we're at now is at a very pivotal point where if we do the right thing, if we take the right action, and I'm not saying I've got the answer, but I'm going to throw it out there. Maybe we can get this blindness, as made the blind see, the deaf hear, and in this case, the untouchable become touched. Now, I think the movement in the activist movement and stuff is so important, and particularly when yesterday in one of my classes, it's my contemporary issues class, and I call it the dismal journey because we deal with such terrible issues. But one of my students said he felt both hopeless and powerless, and that really leveled me because as a teacher, I don't believe you can stand in front of young people and you have to be optimistic. And when you hear a young person say, and other students agreed with them, that we're both hopeless and powerless, I thought, no, this can't be. This has got to be addressed. And so I started saying, okay, what is it that the activists, I told the kids, don't be hopeless. There's reasons to always have hope, and if you have hope, even powerlessness can be thrown off, and you can achieve, and you can grasp power, and you can make change. But the Wall Street occupiers, the activists, I think, have caused me to think that there's three questions they're challenging us with. And I'm speaking about us, those in the bleachers, okay? We're watching all this. And I'm saying we don't have a right anymore to be just in the bleachers. We have to also do something. We can't cheer. We have to participate. And if we can't occupy, we can do something else, creative. What are those three questions I think they're asking us to address? Is, first of all, what kind of a society do we have and what kind do we want? I think the second question is, what kind of an economic system do we have? And can we do better? And I think the third question is, what kind of a political system do we have? And can we make that work? Okay? Now, you have to excuse me, my bifocals, the lower ones don't work so well anymore. And like most of the 99%, I have to make choices, and classes right now are not one of those choices. But so I got some large notes here. But anyhow, I want to address the second question first.
Amen. We know you are.
I mean, this is what it's about. One of the very interesting ways of conceptualizing poverty is to think about it as the ability to make choices. Right? And so, I'm not saying I'm poor, but my choices have been. Anyhow, I think I want to address the second question first, and that's, what kind of economic system do we have? And this is the out of touch part. When I said they're blind, they're deaf, and they're out of touch, that's 3 out of 5 senses. I'm not sure there's a human being here anymore if you lose 3 out of 5 senses. But I would say that we have an economic system that has been warped by the worst in human nature. And so what has resulted from this is what I call a disconnected capitalism. A capitalism that has developed over the last 20, 30 years or so, that it's not rooted in society anymore. For those who like to use Adam Smith's invisible hand, I think they really have a hard time to, first of all, they must not understand what that invisible hand was when we're dealing with a system here that is a disconnected capitalism, because the invisible hand was all about that capitalist being rooted in their society and in their pursuit of self-interest benefiting society as a whole. Obviously, this is not happening. So they force us to ask about this relationship between capitalism and social progress, and Joseph Stiglitz provides some interesting statistics to show how capitalism is, or to demonstrate this disconnected capitalism. I'll just run across a couple. And that is, first of all, since 1985, the upper 12%, the upper 1% had a 12% share of the nation's income. In 2010, that's 25%. The rest of us went from 88% to 75%. In terms of control of the nation's wealth, the upper 1% went from 33% to 40% in that same period, 85 to 2010, and ours have declined. We're the bottom 80% collectively hold just 12.8% of wealth, okay? And it's interesting when you think about what this disconnected capitalism means. And you could do seminars on this, and we do. And I'm just going to give you a couple numbers here, things to think about. First of all, it's the movement of capital, how instantaneously it can be moved. I mean, it's an astounding figure when you think $3.5 trillion a day are transferred in capital in currency transactions. $3.5 trillion a day, okay? And I mean, some people out there are wondering, if they're going to have enough money to buy him a cup of coffee, or a professor wondering if he's ever going to get his bifocals fixed. Right? Profits are just skyrocketing while this inequality, this wealth gap is growing. So is this a disconnected capitalism? I'd say the evidence is pretty clear. There is no connection to society anymore when capital can move at the touch of a button and move faster than Spock could be transferred, beamed to another planet. And it's interesting that if you listen to and I don't mean this to be partisan, but obviously this comes from the Republican Party, when they say that any kind of regulation and stuff, what's going on, they said, is simply that those who have the wealth and the power in this country, they call them the job creators. Frank Luntz term discovered that it works better with the public when you call corporations and businesses job creators. And they say that these job creators are just heavily regulated. Mind you, they're sitting on $2 trillion in cash. And they would spend it, they say, if they just had less regulation. And what is that less regulation? I mean, what's holding these job creators back? Things like, if you listen to the Republican platform, it's clean air, clean water, regulating our, watching over our food supply. For some reason, I find it, incredible that this is what's keeping $2 trillion in cash from going out there and creating jobs. Yeah, thank you. And so that capitalism that we want is not the one we're experiencing. With just a limited amount of time here, let me just move on to what I think the real problem is. The real problem is politics. As Nicole mentioned, we have a political system that's bought and paid for by money. So I'm going to throw out what I think needs to be done. And that is, after much thought, the only way we're going to end this plutocracy that we play along with, and they're called a democracy, is that we have to get money out of politics. And for something to chew on, how about this? A constitutional amendment that makes all federal elections publicly funded. And if we do that, and I'm going to tell you, instead of occupying, what I've done is I wrote to both my senators and I wrote to my congresswoman. And I said, my vote is no longer cheap. If you want it, you have to put this amendment, push it, propose it, make it happen. And I won't vote for you if you won't do it. And if we all did that, we would have our democracy back, and the plutocrats, the masters of the universe, would become members of society. Thank you.